Welcome to another tutorial video for University of the People's CS1101 Programming Fundamentals course. In this video, we'll look at Unit 7's programming assignment. As always, we will not do your homework for you, but we will cover all the aspects of the assignment so that you will have the knowledge to do this on your own. We're going to take it slow. We're going to make the mistakes that could be made while you're doing this, so you'll have a better understanding of what we're looking at. This assignment requires the file from the class. It's an unsorted input file. We will take those items, sort them, and write them to a different output file using at least one list and one for or while loop. This assignment also requires you to create a flowchart or pseudocode concept model. We will not cover that in this video, but be sure to upload that with your homework. Let's get started. The assignment comes with a file of unsorted fruits. We're not going to do that. We're going to take a file of names, and we're going to add a couple more here. It's important when you save these files that you save them all into the same folder. That way you do not need to use UNC paths or Universal Naming Convention paths when you try to access these files from the program. So we got a folder here named video, because we're doing this in a video for Unit 7. And we're going to name this unsorted.txt and save it. We're going to move over to a new Python script file. From there, we're going to paste the snippet that is given in the assignment. And we're going to look at what all of this does. This first line, infield equals open, infile equals open unsorted text. Notice that they have a typo, so you'll want to change that. I'm sure that causes a lot of people some problems. It should be text. The argument of R means that we're opening it as a read file. So when we comment this, like we should comment all our code, we're going to say open unsorted file for read. This next line is going to be similar. We're going to open sorted file for write. This is the file we're creating. If the file does not exist, it will create it. We're going to do name equals infile.read50. Now, if you're not familiar with this 50 is an argument for read. It says read 50 characters. This next line is output file.write. And it wants to write this variable name, and we should add that. And it wants us to write that to the output file, out file, which is this sorted.txt. This will also print that to the screen. It's a good way to keep track of what we're doing here. And then these last two lines just close those files. Python automatically closes files when the program's done. However, this will implicitly close them and get them out of our memory. So if we run just what they give us, you can do this by F5. Okay. We're going to save it into that video folder. We're going to call this sort name.py. Save it and see what happens here. It takes that list that we created in the text file, this list of names, and it prints this out for us. But see right here, it cuts this one, Carrito, halfway off. And why is it doing that? Well, let's take a look. Remember here we had the argument for 50. Let's change that to 100 characters. Run the same thing. And see what happens. You'll see now that it doesn't cut it off here at Carrito. It goes all the way down to the end. Now for the purposes of our short list, this works fine. But you can also get rid of this value altogether, and it'll read into the whole file. And now we still get the same results here, but this is where our list ends, and it's less than 100 characters, including all the white space that is in this file. But for the assignment, you're going to need a lot more than that. Now if we take a look into our folder that we're storing everything in, there's a new file called sorted.txt. Let's open this up. Bring it down into view. Now this is our same list, and it's not sorted because we have not put that logic in yet. But I just wanted to show you that it did create this sorted.txt file and put everything in our name variable into it. Now in using the provided code snippet, it looks like we're pretty close. We have our list of names here, and they just need to be sorted. And those are stored in the name variable. So let's take a look at the type of name and see what that gives us. And you'll see this is class string. This is not what we want. We want a class list. So how do we make that happen? Well, let's try to go back to our Python script and define name as a list. And we do that with these braces. Sorry, square brackets. So we're going to have these square brackets, and this tells us name is a list, but there's nothing in it. So let's run that and see what happens. We get the same results, so let's see if it's actually a list now. It's still showing as class string. When we make this assignment statement, name equals infile.read, we're reassigning the list to be a string. So how do we fix that? What if we just put the square brackets on the end of this and chose an index of 0 being the first one? Will this work? Now this gives us a list assignment index out of range. So it says list assignment index, so we know we're on the right path to a list, but it says our error is in line 8 right here, if you can see. Line 8, so let's go down to line 8. And we have the name index 0 equals in file read, but then we go to print it. Let's try to add the square brackets with that same index on both the out file and the print and see what happens. This doesn't help us either. We get the same error back in line 8. So let's try to name dot append. And we'll add our parentheses on this. And we get back to our list. We're going to do type name. And now we have our list. So we're getting closer. But the problem with this is this entire list of names is only in the first index position of the list. So if we change these and run it, we're looking for the second position using number 1. We get an error. List out of range again. So we're going to change this back to 0. And we're going to have to figure out how to get each name into a separate index in the list. So we're going to make a little space in here. How we're going to do that is we're going to put a for loop in. So where we want to append to our name, we're going to for this. We're going to use line. So we're saying for each line in the in file. So basically we're going to say loop it for every line in this file we're going to change this to read file into variable name. We're going to name line, read line into variable name. And since we only want each line from this file, we're not going to say infile.read, but we're going to take a line and replace this here. Now with just that, we're going to run it. And now we got our first name, Friday. Because we're printing name 0. So the first one indexed at 0 is Friday. And we're going to look at our sorted file as well. Bring that down. And we have Friday. So we're getting closer. What if we change this to 1? We're going to go for the second index. We're going to run it. Now you can see we have Joan. So what this is doing is for each line in the in file, take your list of name, append the next line. So it'll take Friday, then loop around, Friday at 0, Joan at 1, Francis at 2. But we're still only printing 1, both to the screen and to the file. So can we do the same logic here for printing? Well, let's give it a try. So we'll say for X in name, we'll indent this so we know this is all part of that for loop. And I'm going to get rid of these ones, and I'm going to make this X. So for each item, X stands for item here. We can change that to item if we want. For each item in name, write name item index. Let's see what happens. You'll see we'll get an error here. Now what's wrong with this? File, line 14 in module, out file dot write name item. Well, we go back here, and we're already looking at name. So for item in name, this item is already not just the index, but it's the value. So what we want to do here is take out the item, or take out the name, and just leave item. And I hope these samples of failed code are helping you understand a little better of how this works. We're going to run this. And now we have a list of, and we'll make sure it's still a list. This will be one of our tests, and we're going to test name. Typo there. So it's still a list. We get our names here. But you'll notice that there's a name and then a line and then a name and then a line and then a name and then a line. So what's happening here? Let's look at how long our name is. Our name list has 15 items, or 16 items. It's 15 long. So now, as you can see, we have 15 items in our list, but they're separated by this new line. So we'll have to take a look at why that's happening here in a little bit. And we also don't have it sorted. So let's take a look at how we can sort that real quick. We're going to look over here at our Python file, script file, and make a little room. We're going to make some room between where we've built up our list of names and before we print them. And we're going to do a simple name dot sort. And look at that. Now we're starting with Adele and going down to Zoe. Note that we still have all the spaces, except when we get down here to the last one, there's no space. Let's take a look why that is. If we just print one index, we'll see Zoe, the last one, has this \n, which is new line, attached to it. But if we look at 13, it doesn't have the new line. And if you remember, before we sorted it, Shakvelo was the last one in the file, so there wasn't a new line after it. So we're going to have to go ahead and take care of that new line, which just represents the white space. We could go ahead and test each name to see if it has the new line after it, and then get rid of it. But an easier way is to use a built-in method. So what we're going to do is when we read the in file, we're going to add a method called strip. So all we have to do here is .strip, which you can specify the characters to strip within this method as arguments, but the default of strip, if we spell it right, gets rid of all the white space characters. So if we go ahead and run this, oh, actually, before we do that, let me show you the output file and see why this is a problem. If we go to sorted.txt, because Shakvelo doesn't have the new line after it, it prints it on the same line. It prints Zoe on the same line. So we're going to add the strip, we're going to run it. And that's going to take out all of those white spaces. We'll go back to our sorted. And now we have a new problem here. All of these are on the same line because we've taken out all of the new lines. But this is easily addressed. Get rid of these windows. We're going to re-add that new line where we want it. And we're going to do it right here in the output.write using the string.format. So we're going to put braces here. And then re-add the \new line. So what we're saying here is we want to write, and this is a placeholder for whatever information we put in the .format. So we'll say .format. And this is where we want item. And we'll close this off. And let's see how this works for us. Still the same output here. But if we open sorted, we get the results we want. So now we've read in the file, we've put it into a list, we've sorted it, and we've printed it out to a file. I hope this was helpful. If it was, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, like it. If you want to see more, subscribe. If you want to see something specific, please leave something in the comments. Have a beautiful day.